My duties involve providing legal advocacy to clients during the evenings between 4 and 10, which can include helping with restraining orders, clarifying terms on legal paperwork such as divorce forms, and providing a general overview of what the court process is going to look like. I cannot provide legal advice. Since I am not an attorney, I have not been to law school, and therefore I cannot interpret the laws. I cannot tell them the wording that they need to use. I can't tell them what they should say, how they should go about doing something. I can merely give them their options. I can help them problem solve and help them discuss the pros and cons of taking a certain action, but I cannot guide them in any way. I worked with one client who was seeking a restraining order against her abuser. He had been texting her multiple times a day, sometimes almost 100 times a day. There was nothing overtly threatening in his text messages. It was simply the pattern of him sending her so many in one day. It got to the point where she wasn't able to sleep because he'd be texting her in the middle of the night. I was able to help provide her with an overview of the process of obtaining a restraining order. She wrote out the paperwork necessary, we filed it, I went with her to the hearing, and she was able to get the restraining order against her abuser in order to keep herself safe. It can be difficult when an abuser shows up with an attorney and my client just shows up with me, because an attorney can provide advice and they can tell their clients what to do, and it is tempting sometimes to want to advise the client. In a lot of cases, they don't receive the results that they would like. This could mean that a restraining order doesn't get granted and they do not have the resources to protect themselves. I've had many clients tearfully tell me that they are afraid for their lives and they don't know how to protect themselves now that they don't have the law on their side. For the most part, law enforcement has taken great steps, especially in recent years, to recognize the cycle of domestic violence, what it can look like. However, a lot of the clients that I worked with say that when they worked with law enforcement, when law enforcement had shown up at their house for a domestic, that their abuser has seemed calm and collected and can explain himself rationally to the police, while the victim is often dismissed as being hysterical and distraught. And from a victim's point of view, if they've just been through physical or emotional abuse, they're not always able to explain themselves clearly to law enforcement when they arrive. Perhaps they don't even want law enforcement there because they figure the situation will get worse with law enforcement intervention. Many of the children come in and they have a look that is far beyond their years. It's something about their eyes that tells you they have witnessed more than they should have in the short time that they've been here on this earth. So many of them have behavioral issues. Bedwetting is a frequent problem, nightmares, behavioral problems like they'll act out what their parents have displayed for them. So many of them have a hard time controlling their temper or hitting other children. Sometimes it takes as little as a week, and you can see sort of a lightening, a brightness in their eyes. I think what it is that we have given them a space where they can be free to express themselves as children and not have to live up to the expectations of someone else. We've had children who have come in whose it's generally their father, although there have been plenty of abusers that have been women as well, but it's mostly their fathers. Have not allowed them to play, have not allowed them to be loud because they say it gets on their nerves. We've had abusers who have called the shelter wanting to report policy violations by their victims. Somehow they found out what our policies and criteria are, and they believe it is their duty to report these kind of infractions. However, it is also our policy not to tell anyone without a signed release of information that someone is residing here or receiving services here, so we cannot confirm or deny any of their allegations. Many of them are pretending to be the good guy in the situation and saying that their wife or girlfriend or whoever is abusing our services or not eligible for them, etc. And we just tell them that we cannot confirm or deny that that person has any affiliation with us, and we advise them not to call here in the future. I have never had to deal with an abuser coming to the shelter itself. I know it has happened a handful of times. However, we have a great relationship with the local law enforcement, and they've been able to handle the problem every time.